Hamish, you're on with Jamie and guest EJ. Or are they saying EJ Sorrell?
EJ's fine.
EJ.
I go by EJ. Sorrell's my last name.
Oh, okay.
Also pronounce it correctly, God.
Sorrell?
Sorrell.
Sorrell.
Eric did it wrong too at the beginning. He introed me and mispronounced my name. But.
Oh. Well, you got to set both of us straight. Hey, Hamish, how are you doing today?
I'm somewhat disturbed by certain things in the culture. Now, if I may begin.
Do you mean Scottish or American culture? Sorry to insert myself already.
The general, all culture permeated by bad faith and by atheism.
Bad faith being non-Church of Scotland?
But bad faith being us.
Okay. I mean, presumably he has a problem with Islam as well. Still, he's a repeat caller.
Now,
okay.
May I ask you this? Do you agree with the following statement? Those who believe absurdities are likely to commit atrocities.
If your question is a litmus test of do I agree with that, the answer is no.
I mean, people who believe absurd things aren't necessarily going to commit atrocities, and people who commit atrocities don't necessarily believe absurd things. I think it's kind of a Venn diagram you've created, and I agree the middle exists, but I don't think it's a circle.
Yeah.
Some people have attacked abortion clinics. You think that this has nothing to do with their belief in the sanctity of the soul of the unborn?
To be really clear, though, do you think that a belief in the sanctity of human life is absurd?
That's not relevant.
I think it's a separate statement. He's reading us a list of statements that we're supposed to agree or disagree
Sorry, so
with.
this is separate from the absurdities question?
Well, I'm sure you find it absurd to think that humans have souls and that fetuses have valuable lives.
Do you wanna jump in, or should I take the first part on this one? I think that setting off explosives is in order to harm people and destroy things is not a good idea.
But do you believe that the bombing of abortion clinics is largely caused by the belief in what you would consider absurdities?
I think that most people who bomb abortion clinics aren't doing it because they agree with what abortion clinics are doing. So I would say that people who are bombing them are generally bombing them because they believe that abortion clinics are evil.
Or at least the doctors.
So you admit that the belief creates the action.
Well, yeah, beliefs.
I wouldn't say admit. Admit implies that it's something scandalous that I...
Yeah, beliefs inform actions. If I believe the building is on fire, I'm going to leave it, etc. The thing that was giving me pause is that you were characterizing both whether I agreed that the action followed the belief and whether or not I immediately would agree that a belief was absurd, which is, at the very least, a pejorative statement on that belief. But in any case, yes, I think that a person who if I heard, hey, Mr. So-and-so bombed an abortion clinic, I would probably assume that Mr. So-and-so believed that they were bombing the abortion clinic in order to stop an abortion doctor from, in presumably their words, murdering babies, if that's what you're asking.
Do you believe that the 9/11 atrocity had something to do with the absurd beliefs of the terrorists?
Oh boy.
I think that the people that the 19 hijackers committed that act of terrorism in relation to their religious beliefs.
There's also a lot of factors that go into it beyond just religious belief, too. I mean, there's the huge history of U.S. imperialism, colonialism in the Middle East that was a factor. There are factors of...
But their absurd belief was a factor, indeed.
Okay, I'm deliberately not using the word absurd, but I think that there was a factor in that, but their decision to do that in the United States rather than somewhere else, or their decision to go through with that also are
I think we object to having words put in our mouths, which is what you're kind of doing.
generally.
I'm asking you if you
Wouldn't be the
believe
first
these
time with them.
things. I'm not saying that you do.
But I mean, I might, some of the statements that you've given so far, I might agree with it were it worded differently. Yeah. But because of the way that you've worded it, I don't necessarily agree because you've put a particular emphasis that I wouldn't personally place.
Do you
what
think
EJ said?
That the mutilation of girls' genitals in the Middle East has something to do with Islam?
I think it's a cultural practice generally that exists. My
religion
understanding is that it also existed before the spread of Islam, but...
Do you believe religion causes any harm?
Absolutely, religion
Yes.
causes harm. It is not responsible for all harm, and not all harm done in the name of religion is harm that would have
been
lost in the
prevented
middle.
without religion.
Exactly.
I got your back.
Thank you.
But do you believe that if you accept absurdities, you may commit atrocities based on those beliefs?
I think that if you accept things that are true or false and come to, if you evaluate the quality of human life in one way or another, whether or not your beliefs are false and ridiculous enough to be called absurd, you can commit atrocities. But yes, if a person believes something, they can commit an action, and depending on that belief, the action they commit may be an atrocity.
Do you very well?
Precision.
So, I believe that atheism is absurd.
There we go.
Of course. And I believe that it has led to the moral breakdown of society. If you pay attention to places where atheism is prevalent, such as the West, people are denying such basic things as the roles and reality of the two sexes.
Yep, that's me. All right, what you got to say about that? I'm ready. Hi.
What, these people are acting as if you can simply choose to be a man or a woman.
Yeah, these people being me, yes. I'm a gender studies student. I can talk to you about that, yeah.
So you believe that you can simply choose whether you can be a man or a woman?
I believe that it's not a choice. I believe that gender is a social construct and that it is something that we perform and that is imposed upon us in certain ways, and that you can choose how to perform your gender, but you can't necessarily choose what your gender is. Your gender is something that you are. It's something that is intrinsic about yourself, and it's how you situate yourself related to the society that you exist in. And it's not a matter of choosing, it's a matter of who you are.
What is a man? What is a male?
Well, it depends on if you're talking about in biological terms or sociological terms.
Yes, biological.
Well, actually, something that a lot of people don't realize is that biologically it's a really complex topic to discuss sexes because there's all these different gender markers and all these different biological sex markers that aren't as clear-cut as people think. There's a lot of different species that don't have just two sex markers. And you could talk about XY chromosomes and XX chromosomes. You could talk about hormonal effects on the body and whether you develop breasts or not, and what kind of genitalia you develop, and what your fat distribution in your body is. But a lot of those are dependent on your genetics. And so
what about the human species?
So the human species, if you want to break down what is considered male, the things that are typically considered male are developing testes, developing a penis, not developing breasts, not developing, your voice drops and things like that. But those are things that are not as clear-cut as people believe, because you can have XX chromosomes, which are the ones that are typically considered female chromosomes, but you can develop testes and you can develop, a penis, and your voice can drop because there are other hormonal effects that come into play in terms of like your pituitary gland, your thyroid, and all those different things. So biological sex is not as clear-cut for humans as people believe it is. Anyone who's taken biology past the 9th grade could tell you that.
Do you believe that sex is a modified bimodal distribution?
Can you clarify what you mean by that question?
Almost everyone is either male or female, and there's a tiny sliver of people who say that they're something else or they're transgender or intersex or whatever they want to call it.
So yes, so intersex people are absolutely exist. They are not a huge percentage, but we don't know that exact percentage because a lot of intersex people at birth, the doctor looks at their genitalia, and if you have what is called ambiguous genitalia, they pick whichever one it looks more like, and then you get corrective surgery. So if you are born and the doctor looks at your genitalia and says, well, you got a little bit of a penis, but it looks closer to a vagina, so we're just gonna go in and we're gonna remove those testes and we're gonna, you know, things like that. Like, a lot of intersex people undergo invasive and non-consensual surgeries when they're born to basically rectify the problem. And so there's a lot of intersex people who don't know that they're intersex because of it. And so it's really, really hard to have exact statistics on, well, what percentage of people are intersex, what percentage of people are transgender, what percentage of people are, you know, X, Y, and Z.
A tiny sliver by any measure.
Well, I mean, you could say a tiny sliver, but a tiny sliver of the human population out of 7 billion is still millions and millions of people. You know, I'm a redhead, and we are like 1% of the population, so you could call us a tiny sliver, but that doesn't mean that we don't exist.
And I'm left-handed, which is about 9%. Lefties unite!
In my view, as has been the majority view throughout all of history.
That's a factually inaccurate statement, but okay.
You didn't even wait to see what I had to say.
As soon as you say something has been a view throughout all of history, it's a factually inaccurate statement because history is very long and humans have changed a lot.
I said the majority view. I didn't say this was the only view.
Continue, I'm waiting.
I'm not sure how you got the majority statistics on that, but continue.
It has been considered that there are two sexes. God created them, male and female.
That's not a fact, actually. A lot of societies have had third sex, fourth sex, fifth sex identities. There are societies right now that exist that have had, for millennia, genders and sexes that are outside of that binary category.
Yes, there have always been a small sliver of delusional people, at least.
I mean, you can use derisive terms if you like, but I'm still going to disagree with you.
Delusion is a factual term. Some delusions are a thing that exist.
No.
People believe things that are delusional. Hey, just to be really clear here, in your belief, when the Christian church was founded and started to develop, and there were, less than 1,000 of them, less than 500, was that a tiny sliver of the world population?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a problem with people that form a tiny sliver of a population holding a belief?
Not necessarily.
Okay, cool. So maybe discuss the merits of that belief rather than the number of people that believe it.
I'm not saying that the number of people that believe it makes a difference. What I'm saying is only a tiny, tiny sliver of people are intersex. It's a mutation.
But what is the point?
It's not how humans are supposed to be.
That doesn't require a mutation, and for supposed to be, you need to demonstrate intent.
It's a disorder. It's something that's...
Oh, boy.
Listen,
people are male and female.
Even if I were to agree that it's a disorder to be intersex, which I happen to disagree with that statement, but even if I were, intersex people still exist. Whether it's a disorder or not, they still exist and they still matter. Their lives still matter. They still deserve to exist as people without being oppressed and looked down upon and spat upon.
Okay, yes, okay. What is a woman?
Why do you need me to explain to you what a woman is?
What is sex?
Well, sex is a biological construction that is, put together based on the secondary sex characteristics that you're expressing, and there's a lot of variation in the way that those things can be expressed. But you can find all of this in a biological textbook.
That's true.
You said that sex is a social construct.
Sex is a biological construct.
Yeah. To be clear, Hamish, do you mean as a characteristic of an individual or as an action? Because the conversation is going to be very different depending on what you mean by what is sex.
Characteristic, of course.
I do my best not to make assumptions. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's totally fine.
Yeah, as a biological construction is the phrase used.
Proportion of transgender people commit suicide even after surgery and acceptance.
Do you think that might have something to do with the society in which they live?
I said even after acceptance.
But that doesn't change all of the trauma, psychological trauma that happened before that.
To be clear, do you believe that right now transgendered people are experiencing a state of acceptance? We'll take, for example, in the United States.
Some of them.
Are they disconnected from the internet and television and the news generally?
Well,
I'm sorry, I watch the news and our president has taken some acceptance is a very interesting word for you to use there, but...
Your family might accept who you are, but society sure doesn't.
Which is good, but yeah.
People are mutilating the genitals and biology of children, and there will come a day when many of these people deeply regret and resent what was done to them.
To be clear, are you referring to,
gender confirmation surgery? Are you referring to female genital mutilation?
I was going to bring up religious examples with circumcision because Abraham, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Confirmation surgery.
Okay.
Yep.
You think mutilating a person's body to give them an ersatz set of genitals is confirmation? You think that's proper?
I think that is the term that is used quite regularly. If you are a person who voluntarily gets a surgery that you feel is what you need to be more comfortable in your body, and you regret that later on, then that's a choice you made. People get tattoos and regret them later on. You just have to sit there.
You having these surgeries.
I assure you they don't perform it on children. The only thing that they do to transgender children is to give them puberty blockers so that they can choose whether or not they want to go on hormones later on. And you know, one really great thing about trans children and the way that they're taken care of today is that we have puberty blockers, and so they can wait until they're old enough to make that decision, and then they can choose. Well, you know, actually, I think I am more comfortable as the gender that I was assigned at birth. And they can choose to go off the puberty blockers and puberty will proceed as normal. Or they can choose to go on to hormone replacement therapy and go that route. And they don't perform that kind of surgery on children.
Also, people get Botox and regret it. So I'm not sure how deep into this an adult making a decision about their body with the assistance of medical technology, therefore sin, you want to go down. There's a lot of, well, I'm not going to go too much into the who gets, cosmetic breast implants or facelifts.
That blocking the puberty of a child is a big deal.
It doesn't cause damage, and if you remove the puberty blocker, puberty proceeds as normal. It doesn't cause any kind of damage. Trust me, I have done my research on this.
So why can't I just decide to be a black female?
Because now you're bringing race into it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Why is that so different from sex?
Oh boy.
Yeah. So actually, transracial individuals and racial fluidity is a social issue that's being discussed more openly and more frequently in the United States right now, and there are some, a single Google search will find you wonderful research and discussion on that point. Actually, I think the most recent one that I saw was an article on one of the mainstream cable news websites. I forget what it is, but there's a myriad of information. We've already taken quite some time with this call. The description that you have, that you gave our caller today was how atheism ruins society.
Yes.
Are there other things in society that you think are caused by atheism, or did you want to highlight how you think these, well, presumably, first among them being this spread of the not believing in a God entirely. But did you want to try and cover how you think that that's related to not believing in a God? Because there are Christians that agree with EJ and disagree with you.
There are trans Christians, there are gay Christians, there are trans Muslims. You know, trans people exist everywhere. We're everywhere.
You're a tiny sliver.
We're still everywhere. A tiny sliver is millions and millions of people.
Yeah.
You're not in my house. No.
Unfortunately, I am not in your house.
That is also a factually correct statement about where EJ is at this moment.
The vast majority of people, normal, properly developed people,
I disagree with the term normal, but okay.
And properly.
have either XX chromosomes or XY, and they're clearly male or female. There is a blurry line, and some people might look male but be female, or look female but be male, or
which
they
brings
might
into
have
question what the
some
phrase
sort-
"look male" means. But
well, you might have a snake that looks like sand, but it's a snake.
so, in that metaphor, is one of the genders sand?
No.
Okay, so
You might
Hamish,
have something that looks like one thing but is another thing. You might look female, but actually you are male. You have male biology. Therefore, you are a man.
I mean, you can say that. That doesn't make it true.
yeah.
If you have male biology, you are a man.
Not if I'm not
Or a
one.
boy.
Yeah.
Or a boy. You might be a boy.
Okay.
But
I don't really know how to proceed. Besides, no.
Well, I think the issue here is that he doesn't get how trans people work, and I don't think we're going to be able to convince him that we exist. So.
No, you do exist, but you.
I was going to say, existence confirmed for me.
Yep. I exist. My identity is real.
Schizophrenics exist as well.
That is true. People who have schizophrenia do exist.
People who are wrong about factual statements exist.
Hi, Hamish.
Yeah. Hey.
So you can't even tell me what a male is. You think there's a difference between being a man and being male?
Absolutely. There is a difference because you can sit down and you can categorize what counts as biologically male. You could sit down and you could categorize what counts as biologically female, and there will be people who do not fit into either of those categories, and those people are intersex. And that's just kind of how it is. But the idea of man, woman, whatever other gender identity you might hold, those aren't necessarily based on your biological characteristics. You know,
society is
gender identity.
Complicated.
You cannot simply decide your identity.
Gender identity is how you view yourself in relation to the society in which you exist. It's something that is personal. It's something that takes a lot of self-discovery to think about, you know, how do I feel about my gender? How do I feel about how I'm presented in society? How do I feel about the way that people perceive me?
So you said gender identity is how you view yourself in society.
With relation to your society's constructions of gender, yeah.
And what is gender in your view?
I think it just.
I think we're going in circles.
Yeah,
we're going in circles at this point.
So Hamish, this has been a very enlightening call. I'll let you say the thing that you're saying as always. I think I'm not sure when the last time you called was, but I'm also not sure whether we have your email or whether we've reached out to you about having more lengthy conversations in textual form. Are you comfortable leaving your email for us with our call screener?
Yes, that's fine. But you said, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said gender identity is how you view your gender with regards to society.
With regards to society's constructions of gender, yeah. So somebody who in one society might view themselves one way, had they grown up in a different society, might view themselves a different way based on how that society perceives gender.
And what is gender? Your definition seems circular.
So to be clear, I think it's circular because the questions are getting there. Hamish, I'm gonna pop you back on hold. It's been good, but we only have so much time for the show. I would encourage you to call back again next week. I don't think we're going to get EJ here again necessally, or be able to convince EJ to take your call again. But I'm going to put you on hold, and our call screener is going to take your email, and I promise to reach out to you over email.
There's a lot of resources out there that you can ask these questions about gender. Google's your friend.
Believe me, I have. Now let me just say.
Well, Hamish, actually, I'm gonna put you on hold so we can get to the.
May I say one last thing?
All right, I'll give you one last thing.
You have failed to define gender without using the word gender.
That's not an accurate statement.
Makes sense. It
Cool.
is. You said.
I mean, you can say that if you like.
Yeah. All right. So Hamish, we really gotta go on. I'm sorry to cut you off there, bud, but I'm gonna go ahead and put you on hold. All right.
Very well.
All right. Thank you.
This is abominable.
Wow, that's a compliment. I'm abominable.
Abominable. Oh.
You'd be surprised how many conversations I've had like that. The second you talk about like trans people existing, there's always one that's like, well, what's a gender? Well, there's a whole field of study that tries to figure that out because it's really complicated.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Wow.
Should we talk some more about how I'm a faker, liar, making things up?
I'm
absolutely certain somebody in the comments is going to make a "my gender's an attack helicopter" joke. So if they haven't already, thanks for that.
That does happen. I've seen that. I would just in your defense say, no, you did define gender without using the word gender.